Hey everyone, got some more books to show you. At this point, what I'm really trying to do with the books that I've gotten recently is just take advantage of some really great deals that I had seen. These are books, most of the books that I've gotten recently are not going to go in my to-read pile. They're going to go into my secondary to-read pile, which is everything that I haven't read yet. So this is basically showing you some things that I had found that the price on them was just, I could not pass it up, and it would, there'd be this little thing that says, we only have 2 in stock, and when you're going to get a book for like $5 that would normally cost you 40, or that's just out of print, and it's not going to be easy to find later, maybe, you never know. You snatch them up. So that's what these are. Wow, I've done so many of these, and every once in a while, it's like, is this the first thing you've ever cut open? Because that was a bad cut. That really was. Now this is probably from a library. It is, well, let me see if I can hold up so you can read it. It's the Carolina Backcountry. It's some writings by a guy named Charles Woodmason. And his journal. I love reading old journals because you get this sort of first-hand view of how things were back in the day. And I got this book because I have a lot of books on Colonial, Virginia, and other places along the East Coast during that period. But the Carolinas and Georgia, I'm kind of that's something missing, a lacuna in my library of this period. History books from that period, so I thought you probably should snatch that up, set it aside, and at some point read all of your South Carolina and North Carolina books together. Now this, to be quite frank, I'm not really sure what this is, but I will show it to you. Oh, this is a couple of books that I got on that basically have ways of separating up. You may know that I'm really interested in moral foundations theory. Well, that's not the only sort of that's not the only investigation or model about human morality, and there's this thing called the what is it called? It's a triangle-shaped descriptor of human morality. That's, some cultures are shame cultures, and some cultures are guilt cultures, and some cultures are fear cultures. And one of these three things, or a combination of them, is what the society uses to keep people in line. It's kind of the opposite of virtue theory, where people, people just decide to be virtuous because it makes them. I guess guilt could kind of get into that, because you don't, if you're not virtuous, you feel guilty about it. But in this particular model, guilt is something that's more imposed upon you by other people. You don't do something right, that other people will make you feel guilt, or make you feel shame, or make you afraid. So this one is actually geared toward people who are going into religious service, ministers. I'm not doing that. I do have a degree in religious studies, but not for this purpose, although a lot of my classmates did. It's called Ministering Cross-Culturally, and it goes into that sort of thing so that you can have effective communications with people who look at the world in a different way. And you can see how that would be very helpful to ministers. But to me, just someone talking about the ideas, I want to know, I kind of want to see what kind of thought processes they go into in that. And related to that, although not exactly the same, is an international bestseller, Cultures and Organizations, The Software of the Mind. And this one kept popping up as I was looking through these different models. This particular, which author was it? It was Hofstede. I'm assuming I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that, Hofstede? Stede, maybe? I don't know. I can't believe that I actually studied so many of these languages and I can't pronounce half of them. But it's full of charts and and graphs, and it's more of a scientific book than the first one I showed you. But it has the same concept, and I really wish that I could remember this guy's the way that he described things and the way he broke them down, because I remember being very fascinated by it. But I'm probably going to go in, as I read this, keep moral foundations in mind, and sort of try to figure out parallels so that I can perhaps create my own system that incorporates, or at least has some relationship to the different ways that people have broken out morality. I'm also always interested in trying to bring these things back to personality traits, either the Big Five or Hexaco, both of which I find fascinating, and which I've also tried to look into and see how they might be integrated into each other. Of course, I'm an amateur at this, and my primary interest in this is finding a way to apply this to well, it wouldn't necessarily be non-professional, but not as a scientist, but more to find a way to do it in film theory, apply it to literary theory, literary criticism, or even writing for any of these fields. And that's my interest in it is more sort of bringing the science and the art together in a way that it takes into account that art is created by human beings, and human beings are actual creatures that are studied by science. So in a way, you're sort of studying art through the human, and it humanizes the science in a way that just trying to study the art with science wouldn't. I want to put the human being in there in that equation, and this is, I think, one of the best ways that I've found. Every time that I read something about one of these systems, whether it's Big Five, I'm immediately going, wow, this system, this is some character in a novel or a film is like, that's that character. That character is that temperament embodied as an archetype, or that morality embodied as an archetype. This conversation that these two characters had, it's these two moralities battling it out with each other. And I really believe that that looking at literature and film and other forms of storytelling can be better understood if we look at it with the light of science shining through the lens of the human being. Anyway, thank you so much. If you like these sorts of talks, just looking at the weird ways that I think about things through the things that I buy, just subscribe and share with your friends, and tune in next time for more Thoughts of Leith.